Last year saw the release of The Substance, a bizarre body horror movie that focused on an aging actress's desire to recapture her youth. And since it's been nominated for a few Oscars, which is definitely not the norm for a horror film, I thought we could take a look at a similarly themed Tales from the Crypt episode, The Switch. The Switch follows an old wealthy man, Carlton Webster, who's willing to do anything he can to win the heart of Linda, a woman much younger than him who really doesn't like old men. Now, I rarely talk about the wraparound segments when covering Tales from the Crypt, but this one is unique in that it features the Crypt Keeper lifting some weights, while Arnold Schwarzenegger introduces us to the episode. Now you might be wondering why Arnold Schwarzenegger is in this opening segment. Well, he actually directed the episode. Yes, his first directing job is an episode of Tales from the Crypt. He actually only has 2 directing credits with this and a TV movie called Christmas in Connecticut, which is a very strange choice and quite the whiplash in comparison.
And her goose is about to be cooked.
A twisted tale that we call The Switch.
Carlton Webster is a wealthy old man who just so happens to be in love with Linda. And who's Linda? Well, I have no idea. Regardless, he is crazy about her, except she's like 40 years younger, which is kind of weird.
I'm in love.
Have you taken your medicine, sir?
At least his butler Fulton can see that this isn't exactly normal behavior. Carlton lists off a bunch of reasons why he loves Linda, but the main one seems to be because she's young. I mean, sure, she's young and pretty, but you look like death warmed over. Fulton, however, isn't convinced that a young woman could love him for who he is, and most likely would only pretend so she could get his enormous wealth. Fortunately for Carlton, Linda has no idea just how wealthy he is, so he's gonna try and win her heart as if he's just a poor, broken down old man. Because as we all know, young women love men who look like they're a decomposing corpse. I still have no idea how he met this woman, but Carlton somehow thinks he's going to convince Linda to marry him.
They're as beautiful as all the other flowers you've given me.
Not half as beautiful as you.
Oh, gross. Carlton wastes no time and lays everything out for her. He's just like, so you make me happy and I want to make you happy. How's about we get married? Oh, but there's one thing, I have no money, which is something every woman wants to hear when given a marriage proposal. Unfortunately for Carlton, she turns his offer down, but at least she does it in the gentlest way imaginable.
You look too old. Old enough to be my grandfather.
He then tells her he won't let this old age keep them apart, and she responds with, "What do you mean?" But she says it in a way that makes it seem like she is interested in Carlton, which is kinda weird. Carlton figures if she wants a young man, well, the only reasonable thing to do is to get plastic surgery, obviously. You know what's wild? Actor William Hickey, who plays Carlton, was only 63 here, yet he looks to be around 103. Carlton finally gets to see the doctor, and there's just no making this old man happy. He expects to look 30 again when he could probably be the stand-in for the Crypt Keeper.
I don't expect you to make my face look 30.
Then what do you expect?
A whole new face.
The doctor says it's impossible, yet we know of someone that can get him a new face free of charge. The doctor is like, alright, I might know a guy, but it's gonna cost ya. Carlton arrives at the spooky mansion of a crazed mad scientist, and because this was directed by Arnold Schwarzenegger, we get a little cameo by his bodybuilding best friend, Franco Columbo.
The anesthetic, the nerve work, the technology, $1 million.
This was back when $1 million was a lot of money. Now it's just the cost of a beat up old shack in LA. This guy seems very trustworthy. I would definitely give $1 million to a man who's only performed this operation one time in Bratislava, a city where I'm sure tourists definitely don't go missing. Carlton is still hung up on the whole $1 million, but we're talking about getting a new face here. As the doctor puts it, new faces don't exactly grow on trees. $900,000 of that $1 million would go to the young man who's giving up his face so Carlton can look young again.
A good, strong jaw, solid cheekbones, sparkling green eyes.
I think the Mad Doctor is a little too excited about Hans here. It's also suggested that the Mad Doctor bred this man, but I'm not sure I want to know how. If Carlton goes through with the procedure, he will get Hans's face and skull, which comes off as a big relief to Carlton because Hans is a little slow. Although that's kind of expected considering he appears to have been created in a lab anyways. The Mad Doctor performs the operation and everything seems to go without a hitch. I'm sure Linda is going to fall madly in love with Carlton now. I mean, Fulton can't believe his eyes when he sees the change in him.
Surprise.
Oh my God.
What the hell is that? He looks like a combination of Max Headroom and Robbie Rotten from Lazy Town. So Carlton spends $1 million so he can have a younger looking face, and Linda's response?
So different and bizarre. And your body's still old and decrepit.
Not only does she think his face looks weird, but he still has his old man body, so what was even the point? Linda wants a young man, not whatever this abomination is. Carlton is such an idiot. For some foolish reason, he thinks Linda will love and marry him once he gets a younger body, so he's heading back to the Mad Doctor to go under the knife again. I'll give Fulton some credit here because at least he tries talking him out of it, but love makes people do very stupid things. When Carlton speaks with the Mad Doctor again, the doc tells him the face will be perfect. I guess the second time is the charm? Also, a new young torso will cost him $2 million. Wow, that's 2 shacks in LA.
It's an absolute miracle.
I love how despite having Hans's face and torso, he still has his old man voice. You can tell Arnold directed this because of course we need a scene at the famous Muscle Beach. There's nothing that gets a woman going more than pull-ups and military presses. After a nice workout, it's time to go to the beach for a swim. While Linda might look good in her suit, it's clear that Carlton has been skipping leg day. Typical gym bro.
It's your legs. They're so scrawny and old.
Linda really doesn't like old men, Carlton. You're gonna have to go back and drop a few million more to get some less wrinkly legs. Unfortunately, this means he can no longer afford to pay Fulton or even his own house. All this for a woman who I'm not even sure how they met and who thinks his old true self is absolutely disgusting. Fulton takes it pretty well for a guy who's now headed to the unemployment line. Carlton returns to the Mad Doctor, who says he can replace his lower body at $1 million per limb. Now, if you're like me, you're thinking, oh great, another $2 million. But no, you're missing one crucial limb.
The limb that if you truly wish to satisfy your lover, is the limb that she would want to replace most of all.
Alright, I'm gonna have to call BS for a second, because this third limb he's referring to is actually an organ. I also love how the doctor is slicing what looks to be some kind of salami while talking about all of this. Carlton agrees with the doctor's offer, though this will definitely put him in the poorhouse, because $3 million was all he had left. Now, he really didn't have much of a choice if he wanted to be with Linda. She really did not like his old man legs, and if things were to get spicy, I'm not really sure she'd be into an old floppy gummy worm.
Wait till Linda sees this.
Carlton is finally a full-bodied young man. Only problem is Linda seems to have moved to some fancy place uptown. After all this, she couldn't even tell him she was moving? And then for some reason, a bunch of ruffians surround his car, which I guess is an excuse to show us that Carlton can fight now that he's young. Carlton arrives at Linda's new place, but she really needs to get a new doorman. This guy barely even tries to stop him. It is weird that she can suddenly afford a swanky new home like this.
Marry me, Linda.
I can't.
Why not?
I'm already married.
You know, that information would have really helped $6 million ago. The thing about Linda is she never really cared about looks. She actually just wanted a man with money.
I found my new husband, Carlton. His name is Hans.
The ironic twist that Linda ends up with the old disgusting Hans in the end, simply because he had Carlton's money, when Carlton could have had her from the very beginning if he told her he was rich. The Switch is based on the story of the same name found in Tales from the Crypt number 45. Released January 1955, the cover art by Jack Davis features a man clinging to life as his ship begins to sink, and he's confronted by a disgusting rat. The Switch was written by Carl Wessler with art by Graham Ingalls. Carlton Webster is a rich old man who's in love. The only problem is the woman he loves, Linda, is much younger than him. Carlton wants to marry Linda, but Fulton, his butler, fears the young woman may just try to take his money. Carlton assures him that she won't know about his wealth, as he wants her affection to be genuine and not an act. That night, Carlton visits with Linda, bringing with him a cheap bouquet of flowers. There he asks her to marry him, and honestly, I can see why he would. Unfortunately, she says no. He's not what she wants. His face is too old and withered. Linda apologizes as she didn't mean to hurt his feelings, even though she just told him how old and gross he is. Carlton assures her everything will work out. She'll get what she wants. She just needs to be patient. While Carlton is driven home, he knows just what he'll have to do: plastic surgery. The next morning, Carlton speaks to his doctor, who tells him there's only so much he can do. However, there is a Dr. Faulkner that may be able to help him. After a little trouble finding the place, Carlton arrives at Dr. Faulkner's and assures him he can afford any price. $200,000 is the price Carlton will have to pay if he wants the love of his life. $50,000 for the doctor and $150,000 for the young man willing to give up his face. The number is astronomical to Carlton, but as the doctor says, if he wants a brand new face from a young good-looking man, then he's gonna have to pay. That night, Carlton visited with the young man, explaining to him what he wanted to do. The young guy was like, "Sure, my face hasn't done much for me as it is, but I sure could use 150 grand. The next day, the two men head to the doctor's, and after a few hours, the procedure is a success. Carlton has his brand new young face. The following day, Carlton arrives at Linda's place and shows off his brand new kisser. She's confused and horrified. Sure, he has a brand new face, but his body is still old and soft and repulsive. Linda has flashes of that old naked body standing over top of her, and that image just makes her retch. Linda turns him down again, and once again, Carlton meets with the doctor so he can have a new body. This time, the cost for a torso will be $600,000. However, Carlton will do anything if it means marrying Linda. The operation is a success. Carlton has his new young torso. At the beach, Linda is amazed by Carlton's transformation. However, as he wraps his arms around her, she pushes him off. She can't marry someone with scrawny arms and spindly legs full of varicose veins. The only option Carlton has is to visit the doctor one final time to get his new arms and legs. Another $200,000 and Carlton is a brand new man. He might be poor now, but at least he's young and jacked. Linda won't be able to turn him down now. When Carlton arrives at her place, it appears as though Linda has moved uptown, somewhere a little more expensive. Carlton rushes over, much to the shock of Linda. He tells her he's everything she could want now, except there's one slight issue. Linda is already married. Linda's new husband walks in, and much to Carlton's shock, it's him. I mean, the old him. "That's what I wanted, Carlton. A millionaire to marry. I tried to discourage you because I knew you were poor. Last week I found my millionaire. This is George Booth, my husband. Good Lord." The Switch is a fun Tales from the Crypt and also very tame. There's no language, no violence, and outside of seeing Hans's butt, no sexual content either. You could probably show this one to a preschooler. One thing that disappointed me when I was younger was seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger in the beginning and then not having him show up at all in the episode. I've always been a huge Arnold fan, going back to when my father first showed me Predator when I was 9 years old, so it was always a bummer when he wasn't actually in it. But it's still cool that he was a part of this silly show at all, considering he was still a big name at this time, and this came out 1 year before Terminator 2. The story itself is enjoyable, but something I've always wondered is what will happen to Carlton's new body once his lack of hormones start affecting it. Think about it. All Carlton got was the bone and skin. He still has all of his own organs, so you'd think his new body would likely start deteriorating at a rapid pace. Carlton looked to be in his 60s or 70s, so the lack of testosterone should make a big impact. Look, he even got a new member, but considering everything on the inside is old and on the decline, I have my doubts it would even be in working order, if you catch my drift. Would the opposite also be true for Hans? He was supposed to be around 30 years old, but was given an old man skeleton and skin. Would his skin and bone structure maybe strengthen a bit because he still has these hormones flowing through his body? Look, I'm not a medical doctor, so I have no idea what would happen, but it just feels like regardless of what Carlton did, he was still going to be an old man. There really is no stopping Father Time. The comic and episode are nearly identical, even down to the names, though the one thing they differentiate on is there is no mention of Carlton's most important limb, which is understandable considering this is a story written for kids. Something funny from my childhood that really has nothing to do with the episode, but every time I see William Hickey, the actor who played Carlton, I'm reminded of the time my parents had a tape with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation on it, and ended up taping over it with Godzilla 1985. So every time I would pop the tape in to watch Godzilla, it would always begin with William Hickey in the middle of a speech, and then just glitch out to the opening credits to Godzilla. So anytime I see this man, it always brings me back to when I was like 4 years old, wanting to watch some giant monster mayhem. The Switch is a fun, goofy episode that is light on the scares, but I definitely recommend watching it. You just have to be in the right frame of mind when you watch this show and sort of understand that the silliness of the whole thing is really part of its charm. But what do you think of the Switch? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, that's all for today. I hope you're having a great day and stay spooky.
Want to keep that 90-pound corpse for the rest of your death? Keep pumping.